These are the new metal releases for September 13th, 2024. I have 5 albums to talk about, but before we get into these, let me also say this was a pretty big weekend for new releases. So I did a few single album videos for the new releases that came out this weekend, some of which I had promos of, and they are the new albums by Oceans of Slumber, Dale Crover, Flotsam and Jetsam, and Striper. Please refer to my channel if you want to see those full videos. But now for this episode, I decided to include 5 more bands, which will be a mix of some metalcore, some alternative noise rock, some hard rock, some heavy metal, some blackened thrash or crust punk. So let's get into this. The first band I have is called 156 Silence. The name of the album is People Watching. They are a metalcore band from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So basically, according to the band's bio, they describe themselves as having howling personal declarations, jagged riffs, post-hardcore noise, thrash, sludge, and ambience. Some of the songs have guests from other bands, such as the song Blood Loss, featuring Carson Pace of the Callous Dowboys, Wants and Needs, featuring Craig Owens of DRUGS, or Drugs, I guess is what it's called, Change Agent with Try Roberts of Mouth for War. And the band has a lot of different influences from different areas of the musical spectrum. They list Aphex Twin, Deftones, movie soundtracks, horror video games. Let's talk about some of the songs. The opening track is called Character Development. The song has some screaming style vocals and heavy pummeling riffs, lots of changes throughout the song. There are parts that are just bass guitar, other parts that sound like typical metalcore. The next song, Target Acquired, has more of a traditional metalcore sound, lots of heavy guitars and screaming. The song also has some darker sounds in the background. I thought it was pretty cool. Not everything sounds the same though. For example, the song Blood Loss features some horror movie style synth, as well as some lower range goth style vocals. Then there's another song called Wants I Need, and this one has a darker sound with some droning distorted guitars. The tone of the song is very creepy like the movie The Shining.
Come and play with us.
It has a very monotone spoken vocal section, but also has the pummeling guitar riffs that we would expect from this band. There's also a song Funeral Arrangements, which has some thrash metal style guitar riffs in a stop-start fashion. There's a song called Unreasonable Doubt, which has a mix of heavy pummeling riffs, some atmospheric sections, as well as some clean singing that we usually hear with metalcore bands. So I thought this one had more of a traditional sound. Then there's the title track, which is a shorter song, and this one has more of those dark gothic sounds that remind me of a band like Bauhaus or something like that, with lower range spoken word vocals. But the song also features some heavy metalcore style guitar riffs. Then the song Change Agent had a heavier and more aggressive sounds with some machine gun guitar riffs and harmonics. Overall, this band reminds you a little bit of Code Orange, but maybe their earlier stuff. They don't get too experimental, but a good way to describe this album is it's a typical metalcore album with lots of dark and demented undertones. I guess that's how you could describe it. It's pretty cool. Type of album you can listen to front to back when you want something that's very dark and haunting, but mixed with lots of heavy sections. So I thought it was pretty cool. My score is going to be an 8 out of 10. It's a pretty cool album. This is my first time listening to the band, so they left a pretty good. Is from the band Satan, and the name of the album is Songs in Crimson. This is their 7th full-length album, but this band has changed their names over the years, so they have a few more albums. But this is a band that's part of the new wave of British heavy metal movement. They started back in 1979. They are one of the original bands from this movement. I've heard of this band before, but I've never actually listened to a full album of theirs until this one. I know they released an album 2 years ago, but I never got around to listen to it. Basically, this band sounds like a new wave of British heavy metal band. You would think with a name like Satan, they would be this very dark, evil, heavy band, but they're not. They sound more along the lines of early Iron Maiden or bands like Angel Witch or even Witchfinder General. Those types of bands. It's straightforward heavy metal music. The album sounds like it was recorded back in 1980. That's what it sounds like. The album has 10 songs. It's 44 minutes long. Songs are about 4 minutes long. The opening track is called Frantic Zero, and the song is just straightforward heavy metal. There's lots of guitar with riffs that come pretty fast paced, and the guitar solo is very melodic. The next song is called Era, The Day Will Come. This one is, I guess, a little slower, a little groovier, but it's a pretty cool song, and I like the guitar tone on it. The band is pretty good at writing guitar riffs. After that is a song called Whore of Babylon. This one reminded me of some early Iron Maiden, especially where they use those galloping guitar riffs. We get to track number 4. The name of the song is Sacramental Rites. This is the first time you hear clean guitars in a song. It has one of those slower intros, but the song itself is another traditional heavy metal song with some pretty cool guitar riffs. I know I keep saying the riffs, but it's a very riff-based band. And this song reminds me of something the band Ghost would record. But it's a very catchy melodic song, and the lyrics are describing some type of dark ritual, and it made me think of the band Ghost. Towards the middle of the album is a song called Turn the Tide, which is one of the heaviest songs. I would say more along the lines of proto-thrash metal, or even something like Merciful Fate. It's heavy, more energetic, more aggressive. So the song really stood out on the album. The last song on the album is called Deadly Crimson. This one is pretty cool. It has a darker sound. I think it's another one that reminds me of Merciful Fate a little bit. Overall, this one's not too bad. It's a very true sounding. Even the production sounds like it was recorded in either late 70s or early 80s. I think it's a type of album I might go back to. It's nothing groundbreaking. I haven't listened to their other albums, but I would say most of their albums have that type of sound. If I'm wrong, you can correct me, but that's the impression I get. So this will be another 8 out of 10. It's a good album if you're looking for some retro heavy metal that's a little dark, a little bit leaning towards the occult side, so it's pretty cool. The next album I have is from the band The Jesus Lizard. I got this one early as well. The name of the album is called Rack. It's their first album in 26 years. So I remember I got this promo. I knew the band name sounded familiar, but I couldn't really remember who they were. But basically they are an alternative rock band that has been around for a long time. They formed back in 1987. They had a few hit albums in the early 90s, but their last album was released in 1998. Now they're back with another one. Like I said, it's their 7th studio album. It was released on Ipecac Recordings, and the first album since the album Blue from 1998. This is basically noise rock or alternative rock, whatever you want to call it. It's a fairly short album. It's 36 minutes long. There are 11 songs. Let's talk about it. The first song is called Hide and Seek. This one sounds like heavy punk rock, but with some elements of new wave music. After this is a song called Armistice Day. It's one of the slower rhythm with some sludgier guitar riffs. You can hear the bass guitar along with the guitars and the vocals, and there's some lower, like droning type of vocals. So far, the first 2 songs reminded me a little of Bleach era Nirvana. The production is raw. There's a lot of feedback in the sound. After this is a song called Grind. This one has more of that punk rock sound. It's energetic, raw, angry sounding. They play a lot of alternative rock style guitar riffs on this one. And the next song is called What If. This one has a slower, groovier sound, some psychedelic elements. This one reminds me a lot of the Rollins Band, where they do some spoken word vocals, have some jazzy guitar riffs, and they play it in a clean tone. I thought of the song Liar by the Rollins Band, and this one maintained that laid back and deadpan style throughout the song. And the next song is called Lord Godiva, and this one brought back that punk rock sound with lots of noisy guitars. After this is a song called Alexis Feels Sick. This is a groovy song with a bass guitar intro. At first, I thought it was an instrumental, but the vocals came in after 1 minute. It's kind of a weird song. It reminded me a little of early Faith No More. There's a lot of weird vocals and noisy guitar riffs, so it's a pretty cool song. Then there's a song called Dunning-Kruger with some straightforward grunge in the style of early Nirvana. I can imagine this being a Nirvana song as well, so it's not too bad. The last song on the album is called Swan the Dog. This one had a cleaner tone. It was kind of weird, a little jazzy, also kind of experimental. It was another cool song. I like this one. It had another retro sound, but it was very early 90s grunge, but not from the popular bands. It just had a very raw, almost punk rock sound, and I think it might be one of the better albums I will be reviewing. So I'll give this one a higher score of an 8.5 out of 10, only because I really like this type of music. I like it when bands bring back a type of grungy sound So that's my score. Another band I've never listened to. Maybe if I went back to their older albums, I might recognize something, but I thought it was a pretty good album. The next band I have is called Victory. The album was called Circle of Life. This is a German hard rock band. They've been around for a while. Their first album was released back in 1984, although this is my first time ever listening to them. They've released many albums over the years, and it's just some straightforward hard rock or heavy metal. I think to me they sounded like a typical German heavy metal band, something like Scorpions, but with vocals that reminded me a lot of Sammy Hagar. That's pretty much what they sound like to me. The opening track is called Tonight We Rock, and I know it's not the most original song title, but let's just go with it. It reminded me of the glam metal sound of the 80s. It's some fun, energetic, fist-pumping hard rock with loud guitars, a big sing-alongable chorus, and some backing vocals as well. After this is a song called American Girl. It has some sustained power chords, a guitar riff that reminded me of something from the Cult's Sonic Temple album. That's what I got from it. Also had a thick driving bass line. This was one of the slower moving songs, but also a hard rocker. Then it was the song Count on Me, which had an 80s hard rock sound. It was pretty straightforward. This band isn't really straight too much from their core sound, but we get to track number 4. They start to get a little heavier. The main guitar riff was closer to traditional heavy metal. The song itself still had that hard rock or arena rock vibe. It was one of the songs that stood out. They followed this up with another song that was pretty heavy with some bigger guitar riffs and Middle Eastern sounding guitar playing. It was another good song. Then it was a track called Falling. This one reminded me of some traditional metal from the 80s. I thought the guitar riffs reminded me a little of the band Queensryche. The last song was called Virtual Sin. This was another hard rocker. It had a hard driving rhythm and some big guitars. This was one of the songs you could listen to driving down a long highway. They say that in the lyrics. So overall, it was another good one. It's a hard rocking album. They didn't have any power ballads. I was expecting a band like this to have either 2 or 3 power ballads on the album, but they didn't. Everything was hard rocking. Very reminiscent of music of the 80s, like I described in this mini review. So I will give this one an 8.5 out of 10. Thought it was pretty good. Let me know if you've ever listened to this band before, because I'm getting into them as a newcomer, but I imagine most of the album sounds like this. If I'm wrong, let me know in the comments. I have one more album to talk about. It's the band Wolfbrigade. The name of the album is Life, Knife, Death. This is a Swedish hardcore punk band. They're listed as crust punk or melodic death metal. To me, they sounded like either blackened thrash or crust punk, so I guess that's a good description of them. They've been around since the 90s. They had a different name back in the 90s. They've been releasing albums pretty consistently in the 2000s and 2010s and early 2020s. So let's talk about this album. It's a short album. There's 12 songs. It's 28 minutes long. Songs are in the 2 and 3 minute range. So the opening track's called Ways to Die, and it sounded like some Motorhead on steroids. It's very fast and aggressive with some angry sounding vocals. Next song is called Disarm or Be Destroyed, and this one sounds a little closer to thrash metal, but had some bigger guitar riffs. There was a lot of speed and aggression. They followed this up with a title track, which had a slower pace and more of a groove to the sound. I like this one a lot. It sounded closer to traditional heavy metal, but was still angry and aggressive. After this is a song with a funny song title, and it's called A Day in the Life of an Arse. I thought that sounded like some heavy black and thrash. It reminded me a bit of bands like Power Trip or Enforced. It was very fast and angry, just like the rest of the songs. Then there was a track called Unruled and Unharmed. This one had some guitar riffs that were closer to traditional heavy metal. They were a little darker, but that was just in the intro. As the rest of the songs sounded more like that Motorhead on steroids I was talking about before. The next song is called Skin Changer. This one had a slower pace with some sustained power chords. The drum beat was much more straightforward and had a sound more like traditional heavy metal. The song had some melody in it as well. Further than the album, they had a song called Cyanide Messiah. This was a short song, only about 1 minute and a half long, and it was just a very fast and aggressive hardcore punk rock song. This was followed by a song called Mayhem Mongrel that had more of a black metal sound, which could be heard in the guitar riffs. Overall, this album was not too bad. There wasn't a lot of variety on the album. If you're looking for the type of album that's under 30 minutes and it's fast and heavy. It's a good album to check out. My score is a 7.5 out of 10. It's a good album to take with you if you're going for a run, if you're going to work out at the gym. It's good for that. It's just that type of album when you need something with a lot of energy. So that is all. Let me know in the comments what you thought of these albums. Check out last week's episode of the new metal releases of September 7th. I'll stick that video right here so you can watch that one next. In the meantime, thanks for watching. Please like this video. It helps me with the YouTube algorithm. Please subscribe if you have not already. I do rock and metal reviews. I do ranking videos. I do classic album reviews. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.